I'm trying to get something from that person right here, as opposed to now I can live free right here. What does kids want to do? What's my purpose, right? What has God built me to do that's only kids can do?
You are listening to The Gospel in the Game Sports Podcast with your host, Dan Dromarski.
Okay, Kez, question of the day for you, and this one is big-time trivia. Who is your all-time favorite athlete and why?
Oh, well, I'm gonna tell you, I had a couple of them, right? So overall, just through sport period, I would say I grew up as a Michael Jordan fan.
Tough not to like that guy. Tough not to
Yeah.
like that guy.
I grew up in that era where he was on TV all the time, winning games, doing amazing stuff, and so it was almost impossible not to admire his physical capabilities and his grit and athleticism. So definitely I can say as far as an athlete, Michael Jordan, and also Jerry Rice was a guy that naturally gravitated to his ability to play sports. And so I would say those are the two guys that I kind of, gravitated towards, had them as an athlete.
Yeah, and there's certain athletes that have moments. Michael Jordan was a moment guy where he was clutch in the moment, but he just had opportunities to do that. Rice was smooth. Man, did that guy have hands. Unbelievable. And then boom, gone.
Gone, exactly. And then just the way they played football in San Francisco was so exciting, right? And I grew up in Mississippi, and we had the choice of a couple of teams, and they were all bad. Our choices were bad. So we had New Orleans was the choice, and New Orleans at the time was very bad. And when they were good, they were still boring to watch because they ran the ball a bunch of times and they threw the ball maybe once or twice, and it was short throws. So it wasn't very exciting football. And then we had the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons was boring and terrible. And so it was boring to watch and it was terrible. And then we had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh.
Back in the Buccaneer days.
Those were those all white uniforms.
The
Man.
the popsicle orange. And so it was miserable. I grew up in an area where it was miserable football to watch, period. And so when San Francisco came to town, it was exciting because you got a chance to watch some exciting football. They threw the ball a lot. It was high scoring. They did complex stuff, and it was fun watching them play football. And so that was kind of the rationale, the reason, and as far as football is concerned.
Now, being involved in sports and growing up around sports, and like you said, as a young guy, being surrounded by terrible teams, it's hard to be a fan of a terrible team. I can't even imagine playing for one.
No, it was terrible. I didn't like football growing up because it was just the football was so terrible. You didn't, and in Mississippi, you didn't have a local college team to root for. And so I'm at the southern part of Mississippi. Mississippi is on the Gulf Coast, and then all the state schools, Mississippi State, Ole Miss,
they're way up there.
They're way up there north, yeah. And so you don't have a team to kind of root for that's localized, right? You had Southern Miss, but Southern Miss wasn't one of the big teams, right? And so you had Alabama. Alabama was a team that you saw on TV every day. So in my little area, Mississippi, Alabama was the predominant school that you heard about all the time. Alabama was on TV all the time. And so that was really the only football you got a chance to watch. It was so different back then. Now, every team and every channel is on. I mean, every team in every area is on TV. You can't. It's impossible to miss a game because, my high school team is on TV.
Well, yeah.
So it's not. You don't miss a game. But back then, obviously, it was different because, it was regionalized, and then whoever was the dominant team, which was Alabama at that time, was the team that was on TV.
Well, and nowadays you drive past some of these high school football stadiums. We went down through Dubuque, Iowa, all the way down to Nebraska, and then drove across through Colorado. And But let's take Nebraska. There's not a whole lot in Nebraska
No.
outside of Lincoln and Omaha, but college towns are massive. But
Yeah.
you go through a community, the high school team is the show,
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I grew up like that too. In my little high school team, I mean, we had 15,000 people that came to our games. 15,000 people for a high school game. That's incredible, right? Football is important in my little town because we didn't have a college team locally in my area. And so high school football became very important. And that's the culture here for a lot of the southern states here. Football, sports are super important, and their high school football teams are important as well. And so you can look at the facilities and see that I've been on places where they got indoor. A lot of the schools, especially in Georgia and Alabama, they got indoor facilities. They got indoor turf, indoor weight rooms, indoor practice facilities, stuff that colleges have. They have here in our southern states here. And so it's a different animal than when I grew up, and I grew up in a place where our facilities were probably above everybody else. We had probably the premier facilities, but now everybody has that. Everybody has a stadium. Everybody has, super giant weight rooms and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So that's just normal part of it now.
Well, this is a sports podcast, but we don't always talk about sports. Let's talk about life before sports for Kez McCorvey. What did that look like growing up in the South?
Well, yeah, I grew up in a little small town in Mississippi. And I don't know if I was into sports really. I grew up and I grew up in like on a farm. And so my grandfather, he loved farming. He didn't farm for a living. He worked for an oil company, a lot like they do in Edmonton, right? He worked for Chevron. But he enjoyed farming, and so that was his hobby. And so he had a large, giant hobby, which all of his grandkids partook in the working of that farm, and it helped me to, first of all, learn that I didn't want to do that for a living. And and then he would always say this right here. He would say, "Boy, you lucky you good at them sports because you a terrible worker." And so, but I enjoyed growing up on a farm. I enjoyed that, and I go there now. I just like nostalgia, just the memories you have growing up on a farm in a wide open area and a lot of land and all that kind of good stuff like that. And so, still hate working the farm, but I love just being there.
Yeah, well, isn't it probably I think it's kind of the role of grandpa to, make sure kids learn A, how to work, but B, quickly discover what they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so growing up, tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I grew up without my dad, right? And one of those situations, my mother, she had me, and then I had an older sister, and she was 2 years older, and she's hemophiliac. She actually died when I was 16. She was 18. She passed away from hemophilia, and then I grew up and then she got remarried, and I had a little brother and a sister. And then I think she ended up getting remarried again too as well. So we had a couple of different things going on with our family growing up. But I always stayed close to my grandparents
Mm.
as I was growing up, and so they were a very important part of my kind of being reared. And she made us go to church and all that kind of stuff like that. And I resisted that the whole upbringing. I resisted going to church. Didn't want to do it, but she made sure that we were there for the most part. And then we moved away, and then, that's when I started playing more sports. But I grew up in sports. I had a cousin. His name was Kurt. He was the Michael Jordan of the neighborhood. And so, it's one thing when you grew up and you are by yourself. It's another thing when you grow up with a guy that's driven by sports and you have to compete against him every day. And I hated it. But he was 3 years older than me. And so he dominated me as a young kid growing up. And so it was like I had a big brother, but he was my cousin, and he would just ruthlessly, you know, with the age disparity, just destroy me every day and make me hate basketball and sports and other things like that because he was just so much better than not only me but everybody in the neighborhood. But I
Wow.
had to live with him.
Wow.
And so that's I think to me I think that's part of my developing of the competitive spirit was living with him and having to compete against him, whether I wanted to or not. I had to compete against him.
Well, you had to compete with him, but then you also had to hear about it afterwards.
Yes. Yep. You couldn't whoop him. And then when I moved away from him, it was like a relief. It was a relief. And then I got a chance to be around kids that were my own age, and I found out I'm pretty good. When you get
Hmm.
around kids your own age, okay, well, I'm not so bad after all. I thought I was terrible because he was destroying me every day, but I'm not that bad. And so you started to actually enjoy some of the sports because, you started to excel. And for me, my sport was baseball. I could, I was really, really good at baseball. I could hit and I could field and I could throw. And I was just very good at baseball. And so, um, yeah, but when we moved to another little town. You found out that baseball wasn't the sport that all your peers and your friends were playing. And
Ah.
so I was good at baseball, and some of my peers played baseball, but most of my peers didn't play baseball. And so we got to middle school. You got into middle school and you were playing the sports. They didn't have baseball on the middle school campus. It was with the rec leagues. And then when you got to campus, you were trying to fit in, and some of the sports that helped you fit in were basketball, obviously football, and then track. And I didn't do any of those, but soon I did because I wanted to fit in with my friends and I wanted to have those relationships. So I started to try out for the team and go out for the other teams. And so that's kind of how I started with sports. And that was kind of my youth growing up too as well. I had an older sister, I had a little brother, I had another little sister. It was four of us. And we lived with my mother, and basically most of the time she was single. She got divorced and she was single, and we actually lived in a place called Gaucher.
Okay. Okay. I talked a little bit with Eddie Joseph and another Eskimo player, football player, and we talked about athletes and being a dad and family and growing up in an environment, how the male role model plays a significant piece in the life of a young man.
Yeah,
You mentioned your grandfather and how important he was to you. Growing up outside of your cousin, did you have anyone that instilled life into you as a young man, not just as a young athlete?
A few seconds of your time while you are listening. Please share this episode on your social media and tell what has impacted you through this episode. The more listeners like you share, the more people know about the gospel in the game.
yeah. You know what? Growing up, I know it was kind of a different animal. I don't know if I did necessarily. I don't know if I had a strong male role model outside of my grand grandparents that spoke into my life at a certain level, except coaches. Had a coach that was a male role model that was speaking into my life, but I didn't have a male that was actually took me under his wing, so to
Mm.
speak, and said, "Hey, you're my guy. All right, I got you. All right." I didn't have that growing up outside of coaching. And so if you ask me, where did I get that? If I got any of that, where did I get that from? I got that from uh, coach.
Yeah,
I think my first, yeah,
that's
I
important.
think,
That's
yeah, it is
important.
important.
It is so important. I think a lot of coaches don't get acknowledged in that way in the role that they play outside of coaching the physical sport.
Yeah. I think my first coach was super important in my life, really, because I'm very active, very active, and if I don't have an outlet, I'm probably going to misbehave, and I think that's what I was doing growing up, and so I was getting a lot of trouble with my grandmom and grandmom and stuff like that. They were having a hard time trying to figure out how to, keep me from getting in trouble. And then I think my mother had a friend that she worked with. She was a welder for a shipbuilding company in Mississippi, and they went to school together in high school, and so he had a son that was the same age as me, and he was starting a t-ball team, right? And so he was going to start a t-ball team. So he asked my mother, Margaret, hey, you got a son that's 7. I got a son that's 7. I'm starting a t-ball team. Won't you let me coach your son? And her immediate thought was, I don't know if you, I'm probably too embarrassed to let him go out there and play with you because he's just, he's not the most, easy. He's not the easiest to control and get him to do what you need him to do because I probably wasn't. And so she was thinking twice about letting me do it. And then my grandmother kind of convinced her, hey, let him play ball. Maybe it'll keep him out of trouble.
Yeah, that's
And so
fair.
yeah, and so they decided to do it. And then I remember going out for tryouts, never threw a ball, never fielded, and never had a glove, anything like that. And I remember taking the first infield uh, ground ball for the tryouts. I remember throwing the ball over the dugout. Well, long story short is he still picked me on his team. I was on his team, and actually he actually poured into me so much to where he had me fall in love with being out and playing baseball. I enjoyed going out there. Him and his wife would make it easy. They would come and pick me up. My mother, they would come from work. His wife would pick me up and take me to the park, and then he would come after work and be there to practice and everything. And they made it easy for me to do it and really took care of me out on the football field. And I fell in love with uh base T-ball, and then I loved him too as well. I enjoyed being around him and wanted to please him as an athlete. So I actually really worked at the sport, even though initially it was scary to be involved because I'd never done it before. But he encouraged me to do it, and then I fell in love with that and fell in love with playing ball for him. And so I spent the next couple of years playing on his teams and got really good at being an athlete. So his involvement and his sacrifice helped me to grow in confidence and in that relationship and in the situation where you're in Mississippi in the 70s. Mississippi
Mm,
in the 70s is a different place. You
mm.
got a lot of tension going on. You got a lot of situations going on there. And I was kind of starting to, as a young man, I didn't grow up knowing about those tensions, but as soon as you go to school, you start getting introduced to a lot of those things that are going on in the community, the separation of the community. You start to notice those things, and I was struggling with those things, but then I had somebody come in who was different than me, looked different than me, to now counteract those things that were going on in the community. And he cared about me and loved me and took care of me, and I felt safe with I was with him. And so it just kind of, at that time in my life, a person that kind of counteracted the norm that was happening in the communities and in that region at the time. And
Wow.
so very blessed for myself to be, to have a person that, kind of not only took care of me, but also, went against the norm to uh, bridge the gap in relationships for myself.
You know what? That is huge. Thank you for sharing that, because I think so often we're sheltered from things. We're sheltered in our own world, our own little bubble that we kind of live in. And once you start realizing the world outside of that bubble and things that are going on, especially for kids and young people, I think it's so important for people to model relationship by having relationships
Hmm.
with people and helping them realize that there are safe places, that there are people who care. Because I think the influence, the culture influence outside of the bubble that we have in our community can really be impactful, not always in a positive way, but having that relationship, modeling that for you. Now you look back at it years later, and that's a powerful influence. Now, speaking to a little bit into your youth, you're growing up, you're playing sports. When did sports become like a thing? Like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to become an athlete.
Yeah, I think probably it really became when I was 7. I first played. I was okay. By the end of the year, I became pretty good. When I was turned 8, I was bigger and stronger than most of the kids around me. Right. So when I hit the ball went. And I threw the ball would go. And then I turned 9 and I went to the next league. And then I turned 10. I turned 10. When I turned 10, I was an explosive. I was athletic and I could throw the ball faster than everybody else could throw it. And I saw the difference of my athleticism, especially in baseball, because I only played baseball, right? I didn't play football, I didn't play basketball.
Yep.
And when I played basketball, I played against my cousin I was 10, he was 13, and he was dominating me. So I didn't think I was good at all anyway. But when I played baseball, I could see the difference. I was hitting home runs. I was throwing the ball very, very faster than everybody else could throw it. I could run, I could field, all that kind of stuff like that. I knew I was different. And so that's when I am different than everybody else. I could, I mean, you measure it in some kind of way. I'm different than everybody else in this deal. And I didn't know to what extent, right? Because I grew up on a farm and, you had a older cousin that was whooping you up every day. And so you didn't think about it. And now all of a sudden, you know, I'm pretty good at baseball. I know that for sure. You don't know how to you're 10, you don't know how to put it into a category, but you know that I'm pretty good at baseball. And so now you have a little bit of swagger or overconfidence in at least in this. It may not carry over to other things, but at least in this, I'm I'm pretty good. I know I'm pretty good at this. I got this in the bag. And I don't know what that meant. I didn't think about, going to college. I didn't think about going to pro and nothing like that. But I knew when I stepped on this baseball field with people my age, I'm the guy,
Hmm.
you know.
And then things took a shift. All of a sudden, a different sport comes into play.
Yeah. And so then I moved to this new town and then I get to town and it's a bunch of really, really good athletes. So even in baseball, the gap was closed. I left from a small town where I was the best, and then I go to a bigger town where they have a bunch of athletes, really. And I mean, not only just a bunch of athletes, but a bunch of future professional athletes in another small town. But it's a bunch of guys that are probably professional athlete levels that are in that town that I go to now. And then now the new horizon of sports opens up. I'm in middle school now, and now you got uh, guys, basketball guys, you got baseball, you got track, you got football guys in middle school. So in
Mm.
my middle school, in the basketball team, we had two 7-footers, and both of them played professional football. I grew with a couple other guys that played college football too, came from my school, college basketball. I had probably three guys, maybe not three. I probably had it was three guys that played professional football uh, at my middle school that I went to. And then we had a bunch of other guys, probably maybe 20 guys that played college football at my middle school that I
Wow.
played middle school football. And so we're very athletic, very, you know, sport affluent community. I mean, it was athletes all over the place, everywhere. So when I was special, now I'm not so special anymore.
Mm.
So I went from being the best guy to now I'm one of the guys, and you know, and now it's a different story. So I grew up with a guy named Terrell Buckley. Terrell Buckley is in the College Football Hall of Fame. I think he has 56 interceptions as a pro. All that kind of stuff. And Shane Matthews, I grew up, Shane Matthews and a bunch of other football players that you probably never heard of that probably could have been at that same level, but they just did not escape some of the community neighborhood pitfalls that you have when you're growing up. But I mean, that's what it was like. It was a bunch of guys that were very, very athletic, and it was an athletic culture, and everybody played all the sports, and they were very athletic and strong and big, and it was just different.
Okay, then now middle school, you go from dominating, you go to being part of it. Now you're into high school.
Yeah.
And,
So
and high school, how did that build out? Were you keeping up with everyone? Was the challenge in middle school pushing you into high school?
A few seconds of your time while you are listening. Please take a moment to share this episode with someone you know, whomever first came to your mind. Thanks to you, others can be impacted with the gospel in the game.
yeah, the challenge in middle school kind of pushed me because really it got me. It first of all, it humbled me because I was not the best, and when it took a lot of pressure off me too because I didn't have to be the best. I was just one of the guys.
Mm.
But when I got to high school, really, what happened is some of my gifts started to show their face, and so I was very skilled, and I think you know you got physical capabilities and physical skills that give you an advantage if you're big, or if you're fast, or if you're strong, right? But then you have some mental capabilities that also kick in that give you advantages as well. And so when I got to high school, I found that some of uh, my other gifts that God had given me would kick in to allow me to excel at sports. And so now my ability to be able to see things and repeat them, right, in movement patterns that you can utilize to be able to help you get open. So I was a very good route runner, and so I could manipulate guys and make guys miss and make guys go that way when I go this way, right? And so when you run the route, when you're in middle school, you don't throw the ball a whole lot. You know, most of the time you run it. But when you get to high school, now you're throwing the ball a lot more. Your quarterback's better, game's more advanced, and then now I fit. And so I get to high school as a 10th grader, and we just happen to be on one of the best teams in the state of Mississippi. And we actually go to the state championship and we win it. And I'm a big part of that. I didn't play the whole year, but we get to the playoffs, and some kind of way I get in the game and I get to be the hero of the game. This 10th grader, first year guy, gets to be the hero of the game, and I catch a long pass in the rain, right, to help save the game and save the season so we can win the state championship. And then we get to the state championship game, and I catch a couple passes that help us pull away and win the state championship game. And now this guy that was like the 10th best guy on the middle school team is now he's one of the guys on the high school team, just that quick. And so I went from nobody, you know. Matter of fact, I had a guy when I first got to high school, and like in the summer before I got to high school in the summertime, he said, you know, one of the guys, I guess he devalued me. He said, "Kez, if you if you were to disappear today, nobody would know your name." I remember this too. If you disappear today, nobody would know your name, right? And I listened to him say that, and I didn't, you know. But now I listen to him. Now I hear that, and I just think, you know, people do that all the time, right? They don't know what God has inside you, what purpose God has inside, and they're just looking at the outside surface of those things. And he thought that about me. But in that same year, I go and help the team win a state championship. And then my head gets big too as well. My head gets big, and I get full of myself, and now I got extra attention that didn't have it before. And so that stuff is alluring, and it can derail you too as well. And so I got derailed my second year. So my first year, I'm the toast of the town. I played 4 sports. I run track. I play baseball. I play basketball. I play football. I'm the hero of the football team. You know, I'm newly playing baseball, which is my main sport. All right, I run track, and I go to the state games in the track as a hurdler, and then, you know, and then I played on the basketball team too as well. And then the next year, I get so caught up into all that stuff that I don't do any of that stuff. I have a terrible year playing football. Really, I quit the basketball team. I quit the baseball team. I didn't run track. And so it all falls apart because, you know, you have a little bit of success and you misappropriate that success to you and not putting it in the right place.
Okay, you go from zero to hero to zero.
Zero.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got humbled.
Yeah, I did. And even more than you think. The next part of the story is even more humbling.
Okay, let's go. Keep going.
Okay, so coming out my junior year, I would go to play football again, and in for the spring, we have spring season here too, and so I come back and I have a great spring. I've kind of recaptured myself, right, from my junior year to going into my senior year. I'm gonna put it together, and I'm having a really good spring, and I have a tragedy happens. My oldest sister, who was 2 years older than me, she actually passes away. She was a hemophiliac. I didn't know. My cousins come to pick me up because usually my mother comes to pick me up from practice, but my cousins come to pick me up, and then they tell me that your sister died, and I'm in shock. I'm, you know, confused. You know, you're looking to try to blame somebody or reason why this happened, and I'm demotivated again. You know, really don't care about playing sports or ball or anything like that. You kind of lose all interest. And I remember being in class, and I tell this story a lot. Remember being in class, in Spanish class, with one of my baseball teammates that I had the year before, and we're back there messing around, joking, and the teacher comes to the front of the class, and somebody knocks on the door. Matter of fact, somebody knocks on the door, and they give her the teacher, him, a letter, and he gets the letter. He sees my name on the front. He says, "I have a letter here for Kez McCorvey from Florida State University." And I'm like, and when they say it, the whole class claps, and I'm surprised, and I'm, just really kind of, my goodness, just kind of in awe and shock of, the reception of that thing. And so I get up and I go get the letter from him, and he pats me on the back, and I go back to my desk, and everybody pats me on my back, and they clap, and it seemed like a big thing. Now, when I look at the letter is a camp invite. Come to camp, and it's a questionnaire, ask you about, how tall are you, how fast you run, how much you weigh, you lie, and all that stuff. I'm 6'3", and I run 4'1", and all that kind of stuff. And, you tell a bunch of lies. But it's the way I got it was the thing that actually made the difference, because I got it in front of my peers. It seemed like it was something that, said that, "Kids, you're valuable. We want you." Now, I can look back now and say, I'm sure everybody on my team got one of those letters. Maybe not in class, but everybody got one of those letters. But I got mine in a situation where it seemed like it was someone wanted me in front of my peers. Kids got value. And when I got that letter, I was so excited about it. Now, in the same day, we did testing. We did like the 40-yard dash. We did the bench press. We did the broad jump. We did all the testing that you do for at the end of the school year. And I tested terrible. I mean, I hadn't been working out. I tested terrible. I went out there and I ran an embarrassing time in the 40. And so I had a team full of guys that could run, fast run. And I ran like a 4.9, embarrassed. And so what it did is this right here was a contrast. Or this thing I just got was it seems like somebody wants me. And then this other thing right here that says, "Kids, if you don't do something quick, you're going to lose this opportunity that you have in front of you." All right. And so right then I was afraid. I won't say I was afraid, but I felt like you kids, if you don't do something right now, you're going to miss it. If you don't do something right now, you're going to miss it. And so right then I made my mind up. All right, I need to make some moves right now. And so I started moving things out of my way. I had a girlfriend. I was hanging out with probably doing some wrong things, bad things, some things that probably wasn't beneficial to me. And so I immediately stopped doing those things. And then the weight room, I reintroduced myself to the weight room. I reintroduced myself to running and working out all the day long. And so I just changed my focus, and I focused on this opportunity. I mean, I was so focused to where I worked out every day, all day long. I worked out so much, my mother got tired of washing my clothes. And so I would be in my room with just my underwear on and tennis shoes working out. And so that's how much I wanted it. And then by the end of the summer, I'm in the best shape of my life. And it just so happened that we're getting ready to go to that camp. And we're getting ready to go to that camp. And hold on a second. Yes, my son. And so we're getting ready to go to that camp, that Florida State camp that they sent me the questionnaire for, right? And they had some of the best players in the nation at that camp. And I go to that camp, and when I go there, I line up to run the 40, the same 40 I ran earlier, where I ran a 4.9. I go and I line up on the track, and I'm getting down in my stance, and I remember the coach. It was the coach from old coach from Florida State, Mickey Andrews. Mickey Andrews gets down and he speaks to me. He says, "McCorvey." I didn't know he knew my name, but he says, "McCorvey, you gonna run? Is that how you gonna run your 40? You gonna get down in the 3-point stance?" I looked at him and I said, "This sounds cool." And I said, "Coach, this is how I play ball." And I got down in my 2-point stance, and I shot out of there, and I ran a 4.5. And we get to the football field, and they had these number one guy, this number one guy. They had the number one receiver in the nation was there too as well. And I just tore up everybody on that field. I tore up everybody on that field. At the end of that deal, the receiver coach comes over to me. He says, "McCorvey, you got a scholarship if you want it." And I just looked around like, man, is that how they do it? I thought it would be something bigger than this, but he offered me a scholarship right on the spot. Later that year, I signed with Florida State. But that was kind of my story. And I always ask this question right here is, what is, I don't really ask the question. I noticed this, like, that opportunity was already there. I almost missed it. It was every year we went to Bobby Bowden football camp. Every year. It took about 50 kids to go to Bobby Bowden football camp. It's not like that was a new thing that was happening. It was always there. I could have been the weight room. The weight room was already there. It's not like all of a sudden Kez had an epiphany and they built a weight room. No, it was already there. I could have been, got rid of some of the distractions that I had going on in my life. All right. But it took those series of events to get me to see clearly what was already in front of me, the opportunities, and I could have missed it. I could have been, so distracted with all the things that were going on in my life, right? And even myself and even the success I had, that I could have missed the opportunity to be able to achieve goals that I had that I wanted to achieve. And I tell that story to kids all the time. I say, are there things that are in your heart now that you would love to do, that God has planned for you, that you're missing because you got too many distractions? You got things in your life that are pulling your gaze off things that are most important. And so to me, I love that story because first of all, I lived it. I lived that. And so it speaks to me on a daily basis to have that story in my pocket to remind myself of not getting distracted from the things that are most important. But it's great for me to tell people too, because I think it's true to how we live today as well.
I think it's important that you said that as well with this, because I think we deal with athletes from all over the place, whether it's football, basketball, soccer, football, baseball, you name it, sport-wise, track-wise. What you just shared, the youth these days have a term, dialed in, they say. And it's funny because they say it, but very few actually live it.
Yeah.
And I always say when I'm coaching young men that there's a cost to this, and you have to be willing to pay the cost for future gain. And one of the questions I'll ask guys, I'll say, are you working out hard enough and developing yourself hard enough and focusing on the right things enough that your future self will thank you?
Yeah.
Or is your future self going to be ticked off at you?
Yeah.
And say, you should have worked harder. You should have done this. You should have gave up that. If anything your future self says that you should give up on, you should not have it. You shouldn't do it. And even as a coach, sometimes I'm focusing or doing game prep or doing something else and thinking about who I'm utilize and pray about who I can speak into their life today. And it's like, okay, Lord, like I got to have the same mentality when it comes to coaching, not just as an athlete. Okay, Lord, is there something that's keeping me from being the best version of a coach that I need to drop or that I need to add? And so, like you said too, it was adding elements, but it was taking away elements. Okay, you got your scholarship. Where does your scholarship take you?
Well, I get a scholarship to Florida State University at that time. One of the
big
and funny thing
school.
about it, yeah. Funny thing about it though is people ask how many scholarship offers did you get? I said, I got one. I got one scholarship offer to one of the best schools in the nation. Right, I got one, and it was funny. Usually in high school, and I didn't really do great in high school during the season. I really didn't. They signed me really sight unseen. Sight unseen. They didn't see, they didn't really see me play in high school. They saw me at camp, but they didn't see me play in high school. And I really didn't do a whole lot in my high school team. For some reason, I just underperformed. And then when I get to Florida State, I get there and I'm really scared that I cannot live up to the hype of playing at this level of college football. I don't know. I really feel like I'm good. I'm pretty good, but I didn't know because I hadn't done it in high school enough to be able to prove the pudding. And so when I get there, I'm just very hesitant until we get to the field. Matter of fact, this is what happened too. I get there a little bit early. I go and visit my friend. I watch a bunch of my other teammates' highlight films, and I'm in amazement watching their highlight films. The stuff they can do. I mean, they're doing superhuman feats. They're making 20 guys misses and going 80 yards, and they're knocking people out, and they're doing all this amazing stuff. And I feel average. And then I remember the day I get in there, I'm sitting there really trying to hide. I'm trying to hide in the atrium with all the freshmen. I'm trying to hide. And then this one guy calls me out. This one guy, he's my teammate now, but he calls me out. He said, "Hey, you that guy that tried out for the team." And when he said that, it was like a backhanded, deal. And I just like when I saw him, I gave him those snake eyes, just like, you know what? You on my list, buddy. I don't know if I'm gonna be good for this team, but I'm gonna destroy you. I'm gonna get you. And then we got to the field. We got to the field, and it was business as usual. I got out there, and I was better than everybody. I was better than the other guys. I don't know what happened, but I was just better than the other guys at doing this. And so that was the eye-opening moment for me of, something, you look at it, you're like, man, you build it up in your mind. It's been this thing right here, but it's really, I feel like God had purposed this for me.
Mm.
I was meant to come to Tallahassee. I was meant to be in the position I was in. I was meant to not do anything that great in high school. But when I got to Florida State, things started to fall into line for me. I got there and I got redshirted my first year. The next year, I was a starter. I started for 4 years at Florida State. When I left, I was the second all-time leading receiver in Florida State history in yards and reception. I was an All-American. I had been in a bunch of games. I won, we national champion, all the kind of different things you want to do. I got a chance to do way more stuff that I did in high school. We won a state championship in high school too, as well. I was a part of that. And I think that's a prelude to being able to do the same thing in college. But in college, I performed at a higher level.
Mm.
I performed at a higher level, like 10 times the level I performed in high school, I performed in college. And so it just, for a guy that had one scholarship offer, the guys didn't think that, belonged there, especially myself, to go there and have a kind of a career that you had. And then I was with great coaches. I was with Coach Bobby Bowden, who was an excellent coach, more spiritual focused than even the X's and O's. And I had great coaches around me that focused on me too as well. And so I had people that I felt like that cared about me. And so if you ask me about coaches, those were some of the coaches that actually poured into my life, that pointed out value to me, my value.
So we've got coaches pouring into your life, and you kind of see that God's placed you there.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, you can kind of see I use the term God's fingerprints.
Yeah.
Because you can see, okay, Lord, like, why am I better than everyone? I know I'm good, and you've graced me with that, but this is a door. We're getting flown right open.
Yeah.
How does that transition go to pro then?
Well, it's different. It goes different. So, I come from college, and, I think the year before in 1993, we won the national championship, and I was trying to decide whether to come out early or stay in one more year, and I didn't have anybody that was advising me on whether to do that or not. And so I can see my weaknesses at that time of not having these male role models to be able to speak and to be able to talk to and communicate with about decisions that you make. You're basically making them on your own. And so a lot of times when you make them on your own, I'm, 20, 21, 22, not a whole lot of wisdom. You think you are wise when you're 20, 21, 22, 23, all that kind of, that age.
That's right. Don't you tell me what to do. I'm 21 now.
Yes. Yeah. You know nothing. And so that's the same thing for me. I didn't know anything. And then at the time, I'm newly married and I got a baby. And so I'm a family person and a husband and all that kind of stuff. I got a lot of things going on in my life. And so you end up, the next year I ended up playing my senior year, and you end up getting some injuries, which you didn't want to get your senior year. And then I get drafted by the Detroit Lions. And I can And at the time, now I can look back and say, you know what, that was God's purpose too as well. Get drafted by Detroit Lions and meet the people I needed to meet, and then me having the injuries that I had that prevented me from doing some of the other things that I would have liked to do, right? You know, you want to be a starter in the NFL. You want to have a long career in the NFL, but that didn't happen. You know, by the time I got a chance to become a starter, I ended up getting injured and uh, and things go in another direction. But the other direction was also God's direction because that was the year that I got saved and became a Christian. And so we had a coaching change. The coaching change also brought a culture change on the team. So we went from a whole lot of veteran guys that were kind of, you know, they kind of did what they want to do, and then we had a new coach come in there who was kind of more of a, you know, down the line type of guy, right? And then he brought in the culture of other guys, other teammates that were more Christian leaning guys on the team. And so the culture changed. And then I happened to get hurt at the right time too. You know, it's hard to say you get hurt at the right time, but I got hurt at the right time in the middle of that. And so now, uh, now the the atmosphere and the circumstances are primed for, you know, my heart to be open to hear and see what's already there. And so, you know, maybe a year before that, I got in. Well, this is the funny thing about it. The year before that, I had an issue happen. My wife actually lost our first baby boy
Ooh.
of the yeah, she, uh, uh, I guess we had I mean, he died in the womb at 8 months, like almost 9 months, really. And that was a tough situation, but my heart wasn't ready just yet. It's funny how that happens. You think the worst thing in the world is to lose a child, and it is terrible. But when your heart's not ready, your heart still won't receive it the right way. And so God was still preparing my heart for the open opportunity. Now I prayed, I talked to God, I tried to talk to God, but my heart wasn't going to surrender. It wasn't ready to surrender. And it wasn't until next year, until I got injured, that my heart got to the point to where it's ready to surrender. So next year, we come into the season, new coaches. I feel great. Finally, they let go some of the other receivers out of there. So now finally it's my turn to start. Right. I'm at least the third receiver fighting for the second receiver's position. Really, I won the second receiver position opposite the other guy, Herman Moore. And you know, and what that means it's a big contract for me the next year. I'll make a lot more money, all that kind of good stuff. You're starting now, you're getting a chance to put your name out there and do the things you want to do. And then I get hurt before the season starts. I tear a ligament in my foot. You end up you know, end up starting as the guy that dominates everybody else and nobody wants to see. And then now you're the guy that everybody wants to see now. Now they want to come and play against you and compete against you in practice. And so I felt, you know, yeah, I felt vulnerable. And so, but they keep me on the team. They don't cut me. They keep me on the team because I had done enough to show them that if I was healthy, that I would be an asset to the team. And so I'm sitting on the sideline waiting for my foot to heal. And then, like towards the middle of the season, the head coach calls me in his office and he says, "Kez, I need to talk to you." And I'm thinking, okay, now why do you need to talk to me? You know, he said, and then he tells me, he says, "Kez, we need a special teams player." And I look at him and I say, "You know what? I don't play special teams." He said, "Exactly. And so I need your spot to bring a special teams player in." Right. And so, and I'm like, "What are you saying?" Basically, we're firing you and we're going to bring you back. And they tried to clean it up at the end. We're going to bring you back on Monday if you get through waivers. Well, you know, nobody's going to, you know, I'm injured. Nobody's going to pick me up. And so they cut me, and it was the hardest thing because I've never been fired. You know, you get used to the point to where you always been useful. You always been one of the first ones to get picked. Ever since the 7 years old, I've been the first one to get picked, right, most of the time. And so you get used to that. But now, you know, you're in a situation where you're getting cut, you get fired. You're not valuable. You're not worth it, and that hurt me. All right, because that's what you get used to putting your value into, you know, into that. And then I remember just, you know, having a hard time struggling. And then I came back on Monday. When they signed me back on Monday, I remember coming back and seeing the locker room different,
Hmm.
in the locker room different, and not putting all my coins in this one pot, right? The coins was on the ground. The marbles were on the ground. They wasn't in the pot pan over here. They were kind of like, I was hesitant about putting them over there because I just gotten bit. And so what it did, it opened my eyes to look around the locker room a little bit. And so I looked around the locker room and I saw my teammates uh, living a different life than everybody else was living. And so I saw him reading his Bible, and I saw him not going up and down with the emotions of the wins and losses. And I thought to myself, something different about him. And I continued to watch him week after week. Just, hey man, something is different about this dude here. Two things. I knew what it was because I grew up in the church, right? So I knew he was a Christian, but was he a real Christian?
Mm.
And I knew he was from California too. So California folks are different in a way. They're weird. And so I remember just watching him, and then about a time, maybe a couple of weeks, right? I realized it comes to the point where, okay, this dude's for real, and then he has some peace that I don't have, and I want that. And so I ended up making my mind up to go and confront him and ask him about, what he's doing. I feel like I already knew what he was doing, right, and who he was, but I really wanted that, but I wanted to confront him and touch base with him to be able to ask him about it. And so I went to a chapel service before a game. It was the Minnesota game, Minnesota Vikings game. You don't remember the dates, but I remember the game. And so I went to the chapel service and I waited to the end of the chapel service. I don't think I heard a word the chaplain said, sorry. But I waited to the end of the chaplain service and I stopped him at the door. And told him, I said, man, I've been watching you and I want what you got.
Wow.
And he said, Kez, come to my house on our off night and we can talk about it. And so I did. So that Tuesday, I think that Tuesday night, I went to his house and he had a friend come over there and his friend preached the gospel. And that night I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior.
Praise God.
And so, yeah. So that don't mean all of a sudden miraculously my foot healed. It didn't, and so my stiff foot still was bothering me. And then the next year I ended up, it didn't heal. The next year I ended up getting cut and and on to the next thing. But I now had a new direction in my life, which was my faith that was directing me. And
So keep on going.
Yeah.
I'm just soaking this up like a sponge, Kez.
Well, that's kind of how it is, and when you have that, you're trying to discover now this new thing that I have, right? How do I now operate in this thing, the thing that I was running from? I was running from this thing, and now I'm in it. I'm in it. And I remember when I first got saved, the first place I went to, I came to Florida State, and I went to meet with the coaches because I now recognize that those guys were pouring and putting seeds into me. You can't tell right now. At the time when it was happening, I was running from it. I didn't see the seeds being planted, and I was actually running from the seeds. But then when you become a Christian, you see, okay, these guys were investing in me. Dave Van Hallinger, who was the strength coach, who would, consistently say, "Kids, I love you," right? And try to speak life into me. Mark Richt, same way, would consistently try to speak life into me. Coach Bobby Bowden uh, made a consistent habit of speaking life into all his players and where the program was running. And so I went over there to let them know that the mission had been accomplished. I'm a Christian. I am a Christian. I see it. And so, that was to me kind of it wasn't the end, but because at the time you think it's the end, right? But it wasn't the end, but it was a marker in my life of, where I was going, where I was kind of veering to and kind of where I was at and where I grew up, right? And then now this is the direction I'm starting to go into that's really changing the trajectory of my life.
Well, just such a wonderful contrast. Hearing the whole story, I think the listeners really going to appreciate knowing some of the seeds that were planted from grandparents and then building up, and like you mentioned, the coaches planting seeds and having being a chaplain, often we plant seeds and we never see the fruition of things. Life goes on and new set of players come in and you just keep on planting seeds. And
Yeah.
you rarely ever see a harvest. And when you do see a harvest or you see someone come back and their life has been changed, oh man, like this year I got reconnected with a player that I had worked with years and years before. And I hear that he comes to the Lord, and I see on social media that he's been baptized. And I was like, I got to hear your story. And so hearing where he came from all the way where to he went, that's fuel for a seed planter. Like I'm good now for the next like 8-10 years when it comes to planting seeds, by all means. So I think it's really important that you shared that, because you not only see the contrast of where you've been, but also where God's brought you as well. So now you've turned pro. Now you've gone through the process. You know the Lord. You've gone back to Florida. How does football change life after injury? And now you have a faith component in there too. How is God shifting things for you?
Yeah, you know what? Now, it's I feel like my focus is really on healing now. You don't know how much you need to heal until God reveals the truth, right? Hey, how far am I off the mark? All right, God's like, yeah, you're a lot, but I love you. You probably need to go heal your family. You probably need to go sit with your wife, and sit with me first more than anything else. And so that's what you end up doing. You end up getting around people that can pour into you. I started to get discipled. And so people started to pour into me to be able to get me to, get these wounds, these life wounds in my heart healed.
Now pause for 1 second. How did it change your family? What was your wife's response to this life change in you?
Oh, she was there with me, but I don't think she understood either. I mean, I think she just knew she wanted a better husband. She just wanted a better husband, and she didn't know what that meant. Right. But she was on for it. Whatever's better than this one I got right here. This old jalopy I got right here is whatever you can give me that's better than this. And so I think that was the kind of the deal, because she was a new Christian herself, right? Just trying to figure it out, her life, how to, operate in the same type of deal. And so now we're together trying to figure out what does it mean to, to put God first and not put yourself first. Because I was so used to put myself first. I was so used to, believing this idol of sport, right, that I love. And it came about so innocently that it snuck in so small, and then it blew up to where it controlled all the things you did, because your value kind of was surrounding how good you can play, how good you can perform. All right. And so now you got to destroy that avenue of thinking to be able to input this new avenue of thinking, right? God loves me regardless of whatever I do. God loves me. And then working from that, as opposed to trying to work to that. I got to work to God. I got to work to people to like me. And then, you know what? Now it's okay. God already loves me. Before, yet while I was still a sinner, God still sent us down the cross for us, right? So that's a preemptive. God already loves you. There's nothing I can do to make him not love me more, to make him love me more. And there's nothing I can do to not make him. All I can do is not accept it. And so just changing my mind was the thing. And I think that's what you have to get to the point where you really accept that. Except that even when you become a Christian, right? It's, you still are battling that battle on a daily basis. That old flesh that, even though you may say it, you confess it, you believe in your heart. I'm used to doing this stuff over here consistently. I'm used to, doing these things that are not in line with what the word says. And so now I'm in this battle of trying to now, all right, be around people that encourage me to see the way I need to see it, be in my word, to understand, to get more word in my heart. All right. And then, pray more, have that be my main, relationship that everything else springs out from. And so it's just changing the whole system whole operating system this going from this old operating system to this new, operating system right here, and figuring out how it works.
It's neat to see how, as you tell the story, I'm picturing all this in my head about how, like, the response when that letter was presented to you in class and you felt accepted, and then when you're on the team and you're hurt and you're injured and you're feeling this rejection and you're wanting something, and God filling in that gap, that emptiness. And I think a lot of people can speak to that because people fill in that gap with a lot of things: drugs, alcohol, sex, all these things that don't work, and they just actually leave you more empty inside.
Yeah.
And then when you see someone actually living life, and I think sometimes people like think of Christianity like a genie lamp. Oh, I'm just going to rub it. Boom, get my wishes. Boom, life's going to be great. Awesome, wonderful. It's going to be perfect now. And where it's not, and you see guys go through the process. The guy who recommended having you on this podcast, Rob Harrod, my brother. Why? He is a guy who lives life for the Lord, and you can see it. You can see it in his life. And there's some of those guys that just say it, and there's other guys like, man, bro, you're living it. You are living it. I love it. And and
I was gonna say this right here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just saying it. There's a big difference, like you said. It's living it. We life abundantly, like live unto the Lord. Like eternal life starts now. I'm redeemed. I'm forgiven. God, I got another grasp, another chance at real life.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, I'm free. I am free to, I don't have to do something to prove anything. I get to do the things I enjoy. So it's really what I'm doing now is just right here is I get a chance to be authentic. Sometimes we can be fake, right? You're trying to do something, but it's really, I'm doing it for this other person to notice me. I'm trying to get something from that person right here, as opposed to now I can live free right here. What does kids want to do? What's my purpose, right? What has God built me to do that's only kids can do? Not do stuff that, that looks like other people need to do. That's what happens a lot of times. I'm trying to fit your shoes or fit what you think is good so I can fit in. Right. And what it does, it makes my feet hurt. Right. Your shoes make my feet hurt. But if I put my own shoes on, I can walk free. I can walk free because they fit for me. They fit for me. They're meant for the way God built me to operate, and the way he has for me, the things he has for me are great for me. And so, can we do that? Can we do that? Or do we have to accomplish something? Do we have to be, for my life to matter, I need to be the head coach for the Jets. So for my life to matter, I need to be, I need to get me one of those jackets, those all, Hall of Fame jackets. And if I don't get one of those Hall of Fame jackets, my life is a failure, right?
Yeah.
Do I need to win 20 state championships in high school for my life to be significant? Or do I need to make $1 gazillion for my life to be significant? Or can I be successful at who I'm called to be?
A few seconds of your time while you are listening. Please like and follow the podcast. We appreciate your help. Now back to the gospel in the game.
So let's go back in the timeline a little bit. Now your NFL career, that door is closed.
Yeah.
What does the Lord open? Now that you're living for him, what does he open? What's next?
Well, I'll tell you this right here. So the rest of that story is I got a chance to go and play football in the NFL Europe, and then I got a chance to go play football for your Edmonton Eskimos, where I meet Rob Harrod, your friend, over there at the Eskimos. And I had the most fun I've ever had playing football in my life for Edmonton. My first year I get there, I don't know if I want to make the team or not. But this is what happens is I finally have surgery on my ankle, and I get my ankle repaired. And so now, guess what? I'm back at full strength. So I was there in Detroit for 2 years, not at full strength. And then I go to NFL Europe. I come back, go to Carolina. All right. The doctor tells me, Kez, you got something wrong with your foot. Okay. I go home and get surgery on it. It gets healed. I'm trying to get back into the league. And then I'm convinced by somebody to say that says, Kez, you need to get film. So I signed with the Edmonton Eskimos. I come up to Edmonton. I come to camp. I meet Rob Harrod and two other guys there. The thing that we have in common is that we're all Christians, and we become this tight, close together. I actually introduced Rob to his wife. All right.
Okay, you got
And
credit.
so, yeah. And so, uh, but um, but we become close friends because we're Christians. We don't have a whole lot in common outside of that, but we're Christians on a team, and we stick together, and we get a chance to spend a lot of time together, developing our friendship and our faith together. And after that, I get into coaching, and I get into owning a business, and now what I do now is I'm in full-time ministry. I coach at a high school. I'm a head football coach at a high school, but I have a foundation here in town where I do ministry in schools. And so I do the same thing we're talking about here. Really, it's the same thing I get a chance to do. I feel like I'm repeating what God has done in my life to the kids and the young adults and the people in our community. I get a chance to do that same thing in their lives that God done in my life, right? So I'm the carrier, the conduit of that same grace that I was given into the lives of the people in our community. And so I'm proud of that. My foundation is called Legacy Playmakers Inc. And so when I was at Edmonton, right, we used to say after every breakdown at the end of practice, we would say playmakers. And so some kind of way that thing, 20 something years later, that thing is still stuck with me, and the joy that I had playing playing there at Edmonton stuck with me to where I kept the name, and it become the name of my foundation, Legacy Playmakers Inc.
So Legacy Playmakers is a seed company. You're planting seeds.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes full circle now, because you had seeds planted in you, and now you get to plant those seeds.
Absolutely.
So good. So good. If you could speak into the life of a young athlete who's listening right now and maybe was referred to this podcast or saw your name or something that says, I want to listen to this, what's one thing that you would tell them is the most important thing as a person, not just as an athlete, as a person, that they need to discover in order to be better?
I would say this right here. When we talked about it earlier, it's about freedom, right? God has set you free to be able to be the best you can be, the best you can be. And I think a lot of times we try to compare ourselves with the people around it, but God has freed you to be the best you can be. I was telling my players today the same thing. Why are you out here? You're out here for a purpose. God, for this point in your life, right? You're not out here because you have to accomplish something that you need to do anything. You're out here because you're free. God has freed you to come out here and do the very best you can be, not for football, but for the rest of your life. This is really just a football or sports or whatever sport you might play. It's an open door for God to show you who He is in your life for now and for later. So the best thing I think I love about sport is it feels like real life. It feels like this life or death, but it's not. But what you do is you discover some things about yourself that God is showing you so that you can make some corrections or you can be encouraged about yourself so you can move forward. And so that's why I like sports so much. It's revealing. It reveals some things that God wants to speak to you. God can speak to you through sports, right? Because you learn things about yourself. You learn things about you being a good teammate, about your faith, about your ability to work hard, all right, what your giftings are. God has hidden giftings, He's hidden giftings inside of you that sport can help you discover. You can discover if you're an encourager. You can discover if you're at leadership. You can discover if you have the administrative ability, because you're going to use those same abilities while you're doing the sport. They will help you be successful. And then now, guess what? Having learned that, you can take those same abilities and you can apply them to the other things in your life. How are you going to serve other people? And so it's funny how much that leadership or that ability to work hard now opens the door for you to serve people in your community. And when you serve people in your community, that's how a lot of times you get paid. God is giving you the ability to create wealth, right? How do you do that? Through the gifts he's given you to serve his people. so it's really, some people say this right here. Well, I've had players come and say, Coach, I need to get a job. But your best job could be out here playing these sports with me so you can discover your gift. And so you can now, knowing your gift, go out and utilize it in other areas.
Yes. And sport may lead to other aspects of it. You've been a coach.
Yes.
Did you ever think you were going to coach?
No, not even close. But even in the businesses I've been in and the jobs I've had, guess what I did? I coached. I coached. When I owned the gym, I coached. When I had staff people I was working with and developing. When I used to work for a Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and when I was there as the director, I was really coaching. I was leading and coaching. So I didn't have the name as coach, but I was doing it automatically because I had done it before. I had utilized it on the field, so I had used it on the field. The ability to lead, the ability to jump, encourage my guys in the middle of the battle. And I do the same thing when I'm doing the other things I'm doing, like when I'm coaching or when I'm, leading a group of men in a business or organization. We're doing the same thing.
And I love that. The word coach, there's two things I'll share with you. When I was coaching hockey years ago, I remember I was in a grocery store, and on the opposite end of this aisle, I see this kid, and all I hear is coach. And I'm like, what? I'm a wait. Oh, he knows me as coach. Okay, that's a good thing to be known for. And then this past year coaching hockey, I have my boys working out at a gym. And Odell Willis is running the gym. Odell Willis. And I walk in, he goes, coach. And I'm like, man, out of all the guys calling me coach, Odell Willis is calling me coach. I'm feeling pretty good right now. And if you know anything about Odell, it's like he definitely knows how to speak into the lives of young men. And Odell, and I was like, wow, a player's calling me coach. It's a privilege. Isn't it a privilege? It's a privilege to coach. And looking back in your career and you talking about the coaches that have invested into you, and now you get to invest into these young guys, it's amazing how God brings things around, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Just things that you didn't think were in you, they're in there. One of my favorite Bible verses is 2 Peter 1:3. And it says, through his divine power, God has already given us everything we need for life and godliness. And it says at the end, it says, through the knowledge of him who's called us to his own glory and excellence. I have been eating off of that Bible verse because it says a lot. It has some truth in it that if you look at it, you'll be able to do spiritual math to be able to understand all the things God has done. And so I do this right here. I say, God has already given us through his divine power, not my divine power. I don't have any divine power. Through his divine power, it's divine. God has already, past tense, it's already been done. What has he done? He's already given us. Who's he given it to? He's given it to us. Everything, not most, not some, but everything we need. All right, not your wants all the time, but your needs, the things that you need. All right, for life here on earth and for life in heaven, life in godliness. He's already given it. So everything it's not like, and I think about it too, it's not like God is waiting on the throne there and he's waiting to give it to us. Will you take this? No, he says, I've already given it to you. Okay, God, can I have this? You already got it. I've already given it to you. God, I need this right here bad. You got it. And so how do we, and so how do we get it? How do we take hold of it? How do we take hold of it? And it says at the end, it says, through the knowledge of him who's called us to his own glory and excellence. How do we get it? Know God. How do we get it? Know God. The more you know him, the more he opens and reveals what he's already given to you.
Okay. So young athlete's going to ask right now, Kez, what do you mean know God?
Yes.
How do I know God?
We're relational, right? Relational. In the Bible, it's a word called kenosko. is to know intimately.
Mm.
It's to know intimately. You can know about a person, right? But when you know somebody intimately, when you are friends, when we sit and we can hang out and you know all the stuff about me that I don't want people to know about me, we're intimate, we're friends. When God and you guys are so intimate where you know about him and he knows about you, I confess to you, God, all right, all the things I mess up, I mess up. You know me, God. You know the things I mess up with, I struggle with, right? Then you know the things I possibly sometimes do good. You know me because I'm open to you. I'm open, my heart's open to you. And then I know you. I know I'm seeking after you. I'm seeking to know your face through prayer. I'm seeking to know your face through relationships with other people. I'm seeking to know your face through your word, right? I'm in your word. I want to know who you are.
Mm.
And so that to me, that's knowing. That's knowing. That's kenosko knowing relationally. All right. And then now I can know I can trust you. I can trust you. And so if I mess up, guess what? The first person I'm gonna go to is not gonna be outside of God. It's gonna be God. Because I know, guess what? I know him. I know I messed up, but guess what? He's my friend. And he gonna help me with my situation. He's not gonna look at me and look down and say, Kez, you boy, you messed it up again. He's gonna say, Kez, I love you. All right. I'm gonna help you. Okay. I'm glad you came to me. And so it's a different.
It's so different. When I spoke with Eddie Joseph, we talked about fathers and the relationships. And like, if one of our boys messes up, we want him to say, "Oh man, I'm in trouble. I need to go talk to my dad." Not the opposite. We don't want to be like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, and my dad finds out I'm a dead man." No, like we need to have that relationship. And you're right, it's building that relationship. And Hebrews chapter 1 tells us God, who in various times, in various ways, spoke in time past to the fathers by the prophets, has in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, through whom he also made the worlds. And isn't it awesome that like God provides us with this opportunity to have relationship? Like, man, like, and to someone offering relationship to someone who has rejected relationship. We don't see that in our world. Someone rejects a relationship with you, kind of it's done lots of times. But
Yeah.
God is the pursuer, isn't he? He's the
Yes,
pursuer
he's
of
the
relationship.
pursuer. Yeah. I just think about this on the cross, right? I mean, even on the cross, Jesus is Jesus is patient, he's loving, he's helping. All right. Even on the cross. I know if it had been me on the cross, we might not have turned out the same way. I've been bringing out, hey, God, get them jokers, get him, the one that put the crown on my head, get
Yeah.
him extra.
Yeah.
Get the one that stabbed me in the side, get him too. Get the one that slapped me. What's the one that slapped me? Get him. You better get him, God. I would have not been so so patient, but that's how God is. Even past
Mm.
his circumstances, God's character stays the same. His character, he knows who he is enough to where even the circumstances that are coming as a terrible circumstances will not change his character. Will not change his character. And uh, so that's what I want to be as well. I want to be, what? Yeah, if you ring me out, right? Only thing comes out is Jesus juice. You know,
Mm.
Jesus juice. And so, and that's what happens with Christian, right? You can tell when trauma hits, right? What's coming out,
Mm.
because
It,
that's when you can really tell what's going on with a person is when trauma hits, when something happens, right? What do you run to? You know, what do you run to? And so that's just I think that's just the truth of it. So I think I forgot the question, but
no. That was such a good response. I got a question though for you. You talked about the rebellious youth fighting back against grandma and grandpa who probably had the best of intentions and wanting him to be the future version of himself that they knew God God was building into. Did they get
mm,
to see the finished product?
yeah. You know what? One of the best things in my life was this right here. My grandmother said to me, and she said to me, and I used to have dreams of me coming to her house and being, her being proud of me.
Mm.
And she said this, she said to me, she said, I'm so proud of the man you become.
Mm.
And so that is one of the things that feeds me. and I'm proud of her. I'm thankful for her, and that was one of the things that's like a crown in my uh and they're just words, right? I got a bunch of little rings and things like that, but that is one of my biggest crowns and one of my biggest awards was grandmama saying, "I'm so proud of the man you become,"
Mm.
and nobody can take that away. And so, uh, yeah, they did get the chance to see me, you know, become in some way, the person that they, hoped I would be.
Now you're a dad too,
Yeah.
and fathers are important. You know what it's like to have young men and coaches and other things invest into your life. How has this challenged you
Well,
in your fatherhood?
well, yeah, man. You know what? Because when you don't have someone to model that for you, you struggle. I think when I was younger, I struggled. Wanting to love my kids, wanting to love my wife too as well. But I feel like I had to learn, and I've had some good people in my life that taught me that I've learned through to be able to become a better husband, a better father too. And you have a desire to uh, be a really good father, and then you realize how hard it is.
Mm.
And so what it does, it gives me compassion for my dad. I
Mm.
have compassion for him, and I see in a different way, even our relationship, uh, because of just going through the whole process. You don't get to the point where you think you're a bit better than anybody else. No, I don't. What I do is I really can see, you can have compassion for people that struggle or have issues or have things going on in life. I think that's what it does for you. And that's what it did for me. And so I get a chance to have compassion for him. I get a chance to have compassion for other people that are going through the similar situation too. That is because we're all caught in these um, deceptive traps and tricks by the enemy. And when somebody fall for the trap, it's not like you can say, nah, you got tricked, you lost. No, it's we lost.
Mm.
We don't get the benefit of having the blessing that God has for you in that moment. And well, what do you do with that? You are you you lament, and then you know you pray for the next opportunity, but you don't stay there. And so that's kind of how I feel with, that situation, even with my dad, uh, and really trying to uh, put it in the right picture. Because the Bible talks about it. We don't battle against flesh and blood, but spiritual principalities. My beef is not with my upbringing and how, I didn't get all the stuff I wanted to get. My beef is with, the enemy and how sin corrupts, all the things that God has for us. And then how do we now negate the effects upon the rest of the world? And so that's where the gospel comes in. And that's where, what we're doing now as far as ministries is concerned.
Mm. Love it. Absolutely love it. Kev, we could talk for a long time. And you know what? If you're ever up this way, I got brisket to smoke. And we probably could, well, if we got 4 hours in my back deck, bring your family.
Okay, I appreciate you. I
Uh,
would love to come back to Edmonton. It's beautiful in the spring and the summer. I love it. Love
but
walking through the river valley.
we're going to move to the next portion of our program here. We got 5 fast, quick questions to you. This is going to test you, keep you on your toes. So let's give you a little bit of a challenge here. Are you ready?
Yep.
If you could have any pet that's domesticated, what's Kez? You're walking into an interview, and you're bringing your pet. What's your pet?
My pet, it's a it's a little French bulldog.
Oh, okay.
Yes, a little fatty, a little fat little rascal. He's so fat, he's so cute, and he can't jump. He's not very athletic. He'd probably try to jump on the couch and he'd probably hit his face there, but then I would laugh at him.
And you laugh at him, and then you got like the collar with the big spikes on it.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, and then his name is Killer. Just to
Yes.
intimidate everyone. Okay, well, a little lighthearted question to start things off, just to settle the mood a little bit. you know what? It's always fun doing these questions because every once in a while I'll just throw one in like that just to lighten the mood. Another question for you: if you could speak into the life of young Kez McCorvey in middle school, what would you tell him? Give him a little piece of advice.
Absolutely. Well, I would tell him the same thing I would tell my son. I was telling him that you are valuable, that you are loved, that you are more than enough. All right. God has a great plan for your life. Right. And it may not seem like it now because the circumstances, I would try to tell them the truth. The circumstances, the other people are being spoken into their life about things that don't matter. And just because they're speaking it to you, they don't mean it works that way. And so it's hard to because I remember me hurting young kid, you know, susceptible to all these circumstances that are going on. And and if I had a voice that I would listen to, that's the question. Is do you think would I listen to me? Would I listen to me enough? And if I would tell him that he's valuable, that he's loved, that God loves him way more. He has a great plan for his life, right? And I would try to point out some of the things in his life that's going to happen, because I think back then I didn't think this stuff was possible,
Mm,
the things that happened in my life.
mm.
And so, I feel like I'm living a miracle, really. I'm not rich by any means. I don't have everything going right for me, but I think the stuff I got going on in my life is a miracle from where I thought and where I hoped in my life.
Okay, now we're gonna flip to the other side of you. You got to write a note to the older version of yourself. You're the grandpa now. What are you gonna say to him
Mm.
to remind him of where you are today in this moment?
I would say this right here. I would say, what, um, keep moving forward. God has great life. God has greatness in front of you.
Mm.
Even though you're old, God has greatness in front of you. Still live and love and hit this thing 100%. And
Um,
so,
you know,
I would still, even to the last breath. I got a cool story.
I love cool stories.
Uh,
Go, go, go.
Yep, when I moved back to town here, I worked for FCA, and I got a chance to be the liaison and the person that traveled with Coach Bobby Bowden. And so uh, he had gotten a little bit older, and he was having a hard time traveling in my truck. My truck was a tall truck, and he couldn't get up there. He was short; he couldn't get up there. So I had to borrow my wife's car, and I had to put him. And so he still was having a hard time getting in and out of my wife's car. And so I started to think about Coach Bowden. We don't need to go up to every person that asks us to come and speak at their place. And he would tell me, he would say, "Kids, I don't care who asks me to speak, I'm going to speak." And I'm like, man, I'm going to speak. And he did that to his last deal. I was struggling to get him in and out of cars, traveling overnight. What I did is I learned how to finish well.
Mm,
Learn how to finish well from him.
mm.
Into his buried last breath, he was they had made the announcement that he was getting ready to pass. And I was like, yes, should I go over there? I don't want to interrupt the family, the proximity of the family and I don't want to interrupt that, but I spent a lot of time with him and I was struggling. Should I do it or should not do it? And go over there. And then, I would drive past his house and I'm like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to go over there and interrupt and be that guy that's, obnoxiously, when the family's there and I was just struggling with it. Finally, I said to myself, you know what? I'm gonna go. And so I drove over there, parked in the parking in the driveway, went to the house, knocked on the door. His daughter answered the door. She said, "Hey, kids, how you doing?" And I said, "I came to see Coach Bowden." She said, "Okay, well, he's in the back there, and when you go back there, he'll wake up. He'll wake up, and you'll see him." All right. And my anticipation was that he would, you know, be, kind of out of it, and I would probably be crying or something like that, trying to hug him or whatever. I didn't know what to expect. I go to the door, open the door. When I open the door, he wakes up. He says, "Hey, Kez, how you doing, buddy? Buddy, I'm so proud of you, buddy. You doing a great job. Boy, I'm so proud of you. Keep it up now. You keep working hard. But I'm proud of what you're doing in the Lord, man. You doing a great job. Man, golly, boy, you doing a great job." He patted me on the shoulder and everything like that. And I'm looking at him, thinking to myself, ain't you supposed to be dying? aren't you, aren't you supposed to be dying or something? You don't seem like you dying, you know? And I left the room out of there. I didn't get a chance to encourage him at all. He encouraged me.
Oh, so good.
He encouraged me in his dying last breath. I mean, I think maybe a week later he died. He's encouraging me. He was being who he was all the way through. That is the same thing we talk about Jesus, right? What happens when stuff is, even to death? What happens to you when you get squeezed? What comes out? Is it Jesus juice? And when I say Jesus juice, I mean your character, who God's called you to be. You can't not be who you're called to be, right? So if you're coach to the last moment. If you're an encourager, encourage to the last moment. All right. If you got any kind of gift that God's given you, do it to the last moment, because that's what we're meant to do. It don't matter if you have an official job or you're retired or you're not retired. You do what you call. You do who you are. So that's what I would write a letter to myself, is to keep doing who you are.
So good. So good. I think there's so many young athletes that are on the cusp, that it's their dial-in moment, and they're at the fork in the road. Which way do I go? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to dial in for the Lord?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because now you get a chance to, when you dial in for the Lord, guess what? You get a chance to become single-minded. And when you become single-minded, there's nothing you can't accomplish. And I think a lot of times what happens is you get guys that are not single-minded. They got so many things going on and they're not sure about it. When you become sure about what God's called you to do, you can accomplish most anything. That's when the adventure happens. And I think a lot of people are just missing out because they're going for the cheap version as opposed to the God purposed version of what their life's supposed to be. And so it is worth it. It is worth it, because it gives you, I'm trying to think of the right word. It gives you a powerful voice. If your voice is aligned with God's voice, your voice becomes powerful. If your voice is over here squeaky, just saying a little thing right here, you don't believe it. You don't even believe it yourself. But when you align, man, you have a powerful voice. And so that's what I would say to young people.
I love that response, because I think there are a lot of even young Christians like that have that, the enemy puts that seed of self-doubt in.
Yeah.
And they wonder if it's going to be worth it or not. And I think that's a good voice to hear from someone who's walked the path. Well, Kez, I got one last question. Will you please come back again and be interviewed? This has been so good. I love it, brother. I absolutely do.
Well, I definitely. Whenever you ask, I'm here. So
Okay,
I appreciate you, man. I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it myself. And so I got to tell you more Rob Harris story, how he got a.
Yeah, you know what? God is good. God is so good. And I think the wonderful thing about knowing the Lord and loving sport is, man, we need eternity, don't we? Because there's going to be so many stories and conversations about the goodness of God. It's going to take forever.
I'm telling you, I can't wait to see, because this is the thing right here, the behind the scenes of how God, and sometimes I can imagine, how I look at my life and imagine how God was utilizing my circumstances to get his goal accomplished. I thought I was in charge, but God says, no, I'm in charge of this thing. Before you were born, I'd known the path you would take. I'd known the direction you would go. And I had already knew that you were going to go over here, right? I'm putting these things in place. I got you. We're so concerned and worried about all these things are happening. And God saying, I got this under control, but I'm good at this. I'm good at this. Right? You can trust me in these things, right? And that's what I realize now, it's all the times I've worried about stuff. For what? For nothing.
Go-to Bible verse?
Go to Bible verse right now. I got two of them. I got Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all the things we added to you. And then 2 Peter, the one I just said earlier, 2 Peter 1:3, through his divine power, God's already given us everything we need for life and godliness. And so those would probably be like the ones that right now in my life, you got different ones at different times, but right now, those would be the ones that I've kind of, readily have available to shoot down any attacks of the enemy.
Love it. Well, let's close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this time we've been able to spend together, this conversation that's been guided by you and surrounded by you. And Lord, we just pray for Kez and the different opportunities that you have him work with to coach and to plant seeds. And Lord, we just pray that as he does, you would receive all glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
If you have enjoyed this episode, please follow the podcast and let us know your feedback. This podcast is listener supported, and you can be an encouragement to us by sharing this episode with others. With your help, we can reach more people with the gospel in the game.